Welcome to Number Sequences with Mr. D. Okay, before we start off, if you've forgotten the vocabulary from the other day, go back and watch my video. It's really important that we're using the appropriate and the correct vocabulary when we're solving these problems. So do not forget the vocab. All right, always remember that. So today we're going to carry on looking at some number sequences. We're going to be starting looking at the word rule and what the word rule means. Now, some of you got onto that today. That's absolutely fine. But for the majority of you, this might be something new, okay? So we're going to have a look at a few different types of questions, and then we're going to lead on something that really is quite tricky, but is going to give you some great foundations for when you get off to high school, which isn't a million miles away, okay? So we're going to start with this first question here, and it says, start at the number 4, which I've done here, and the rule is, my rule is that every time I've got to add 6. So to go from here to here, I've got to add 6. Well, 4 add 6 is 10, and it's a repeated pattern because the rule says that we just add 6. So every time we add 6. So what's the next one? 16, and then we add 6 again. Make sure you're jumping over your number bonds now. 22, add on 6, next one. 28, well done. Try and work out the next one. Yep, 34. And the last one should be a really easy jump. We're seeing that number 4 there. We know our number bonds. Yeah, it was 40. Okay. Now, that works, but it's not very efficient. Okay, it's quite a slow method. We'll come to how we can improve that later on. Okay, let's have a look at another example. Now, the numbers might just ask you to carry on a sequence. Okay, so for example here, 44, 47, 50, 53. Now it's really important that you've got at least 3 numbers so you can see if it's an equal sequence or an uneven sequence. Okay, so if I'm going to look at these now, the jump there was add 3 to get from there to add 3, and to get from there to there was add 3. So I know it's going up in equal steps. All right, so to carry it on, simply going to add 3. So 53 add 3, what is it? 56. And then I'm going to jump again. I'm going to add another 3. Add it on is 59. So the rule is simply every single time you add 3. Okay? So far, so good. Now, we may get today decimal numbers or fractions. Now, this is where it shows whether you know your fractions and decimals or if you don't. If you're going to do decimals, imagine it as money. 25 pence, 50 pence, 75 pence, and keep adding on the amount it is. So this jump here, if you think of it as money, it's an easy way. We're adding on 0.25, and again to get from here to here, 0.25. So each time I've got to add on 2.5. Now my box is a little bit small here, so I might have to squeeze mine in. Adding on 2.5 to 7.5, think of it as money. 75p or 25p is 1 whole. Okay, add another 22.5 for 0.25, add it on 1.25. The rule is, we found the rule here, every time we add 0.25. Now you may have some that are also takeaways today, so watch out for them. Now, the next little bit of the video gets a little bit complicated. Some of you might have already mastered it today, some of you might have already solved it. This is something that you're going to get at high school, and even if you can just get a tiny bit over these next few days, you are well on track. And it's called the nth term. It basically means any number, the nth term. Okay, now for section C today, some of the nth terms are incredibly tricky to work out, and you may not be able to answer the last bit on C today, but you can certainly do the first 2 sections. So the first bit where you copy it and write the next 3 you can do. You can find the rule, but you might not be able to work out the nth term. If you can't, don't worry, okay? Exactly the same as before. We need to see what they're going up in, okay? 4 to 7, we add 3. 7 to 10, we add 3. 10 to 13, we add 3. So straight away we can work out the next numbers quite quickly now. Now we know our system. Add on 3, 16. Add on 3, 19. Add on 3 at 22. Now, that's good, but if I said to you I wanted to know the hundredth one, it would take an incredibly long time to keep doing this. So we need a formula. And the formula is what we call the nth term. So we need to see a relationship between the numbers at the top and the numbers at the bottom. We need to see a pattern occurring. We need to see what link we can make. Now, my advice to you is never look at the first one because that can confuse you. I always look at the next two. So, I know it's going up by 3 every time. So that has to be in it. So it's going to be 3 something. So 3 is going to be involved somewhere. So I'm going to look. Well, if I did 3 add 2, that would equal 5. I'd have to add something on. That gets quite confusing. But if I do 3 times by the pattern number, 3 times by 2, which equaled 6, how many to get from 6 to 7? We add on 1. Okay, it got me to 7. Now that's not good enough. We need to check it works. Okay, so again, we know 3 is involved because that's what it's going up by every time. This time, let's have a look at the next one. So 3 times by the pattern number, 1, 2, 3. 3 times by 3 is 9. Add on my 1 equals 10. I've got the same pattern happening here as I have here. So I can now work out my nth term. So my nth term equals 3 times by the number, which I'm going to call an n. So 3 times by the number, add on 1. So if I wanted to know what our 100th term was, I can apply that now. And I can say 3 times 100, add 1 will give me my answer. 3 times 100 was 300, add on 1, 301. Okay? You may also see this represented as 3n plus 1. That just means times. So if there's no operation here, it always means time. This is incredibly tricky. You may not get this step today, but over the next few days, if you just grab little bits from it, it's going to give you a great start when you get off to high school. Good luck and enjoy your maths today. And don't forget, remember that vocabulary.